Hello, and welcome to the first session of our conference this morning. This session, the topic is HBCU Research Universities, Capacity, Culture, and Institutional Capital. I am Melanie Carter. I'm Associate Provost and Director of the Center for HBCU Research Leadership and Policy here at Howard University, and I'm joined by Dr. Anthony Wuto, who is our Provost and Chief Academic Officer. Our other guest, Dr. Bruce Jones, won't be with us today, but we will carry on and look forward to the engaging conversation. As you all know, this panel examines the research landscape of HBCUs, really talking about institutional capacity, research culture, and the mechanisms through which universities leverage their intellectual and financial capital. And so this is a very timely and compelling topic. I thought an ideal topic to start our conference off this year. Certainly, there's been a lot of attention given to the topic of research universities, particularly HBCU research universities. And so again, I think we have the perfect panelists today to talk with us about what that means for HBCUs. Again, we have Dr. Anthony Wuto, who is our Provost and Chief Academic Officer, also, of course, my boss. And certainly he has been Dean, he has been Provost, at Howard University since what, 2015, Provost? 2015.
Yes, that's correct.
So 10 years. I believe you're the longest serving Provost here at Howard University.
And that is true.
It's true, exactly. So that's a great thing. Certainly a great leader to work with. And really, we've had some exciting developments here at Howard University. And so not only certainly as Dr. Wuto served as provost for the last 10 years. So prior to that, he was dean of the College of Pharmacy and also served at the university now for nearly, 25, 26 years? How long have you been at Howard?
29.
29, nearly 30 years. So his certainly his experience and the breadth and depth of his knowledge of the university is vast. And so certainly look forward to an engaging conversation. And so Provost Wuto, I'll just ask you first to just talk about attaining Research 1 status. Howard University certainly had research status for R1 status for many, many years. And then certainly in 2008, I think we switched to Research 2. And again, recently were announced as gaining or achieving Research 1 status. Again, we're the only HBCU to have that status at this point. So you can talk a little bit about why that's important or what that means for the university at this important time.
Sure, and good morning, colleagues, and certainly want to thank you for organizing this conference, Dr. Carter, and congratulate you and the HBCU Center on the work that you continue to do. The R1 research designation is a classification used to categorize doctoral granting universities that really demonstrate the highest levels of research activity. It's a part of the Carnegie classification of institutions of higher education, and they had recently modified and updated their criteria, but R1 designation really signifies very high research activity. That's really the primary criteria that is used, and R1 institutions engage in a significant amount of research and development across a variety of fields. They also use as a criteria high research spending. And so for an institution to be designated as an R1 institution, there has to be expenditures of at least $50 million in total research expenditures on an annual basis. And there also has to be significant doctorate production. R1 universities, in order to achieve that designation, currently have to have awarded at least 70 research doctorates per year. And so Howard was able to be designated again as an R1 institution because we met those criteria. And what does that mean for Howard or any other institution to be designated as R1? It really is considered a mark of prestige and accomplishment that signifies that the university is among the leading research institutions in the nation. And with that designation, it certainly also assists the university in terms of attracting top-rate scholars and researchers, and also identifying and being able to recruit top students who are going to be engaged in research and pursuing doctoral degrees. For our students, particularly our graduate students as well, attending an R1 university oftentimes means access to more research opportunities, advanced facilities, and mentoring from leading researchers. We also know that the federal government and foundations and other entities often look to R1 institutions to partner and collaborate with, because they are deemed the universities and the institutions that are the most engaged in research, that perhaps are the most advanced, have the infrastructure to do much of the critical research that needs to be done. And certainly we are proud to have reattained R1 status, but it also means that we have significant work that we need to do to make sure that we're continuing to build upon our research infrastructure, that we're supporting our faculty, researchers, and our students at the highest level, and that we continue to make sure that we're advancing research and scholarship in the many fields that our faculty have demonstrated that they have been doing over the last several decades.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I know the decision to pursue or to reattain R1 status was really very strategic and intentional. And there were things put in place to make sure that that occurred. And what did that mean for the academic enterprise? Not only attaining it, but the pursuit of it. What kinds of things were necessary for the university to put in place in order for that to happen?
That's a great question, and also an excellent point. You don't just happen to become an R1 institution. It really does take planning and strategy, and making sure that we're achieving the metrics that are important and that are used in the consideration of R1 status. Our president emeritus, Wayne Frederick, really did a great job of thinking through what was going to be critical for us to re-elevate to R1 status. Vice President for Research, Bruce Jones, who unfortunately is under the weather and couldn't join us today, but his team was also really critical in making sure that we are looking at the right metrics, and that we're putting in place the infrastructure that is necessary for our faculty to be successful in the conduct of their research. And also that we have a broad institutional approach. This really wasn't something that one school or college could do unilaterally, or a couple of researchers who were very active. It really needed to be a broad institutional approach. And as we transitioned in our presidencies, President Ben Vinson III really picked up the mantle and made sure that we were continuing to do the things necessary to support our broader research infrastructure, and to assure that that would mean that we would ultimately also meet the metrics necessary to achieve the R1 status.
That's great. And I know it's so important that, again, those processes and those I see that as, I know I've watched that as that certainly continues to evolve to support that. When I look at the Carnegie classifications as for the 2025 year, the new listing, there are they've really sort of altered some of the categories. Certainly, Howard would have met the criteria from the previous sort of methodology, but right now, certainly before the 2025 listing was issued, there were 11 R2 um, HBCUs. Of course, there was not an R1, but there were 11 R2 institutions, and that category included just R1 and R2. With the 2025 listing, it's been expanded. Certainly now we have Howard as the single Research 1 institution. In the Research 2 category, now I believe there are 13 HBCUs. And now in the new third category, Research College and Universities, there are 26. So I think there are a total of 40 HBCU research universities compared to 11 in the prior listing. What do you think that means for HBCUs, for those HBCUs particularly who are in the R2 category and those of that category who seek R1 status? Not all, certainly HBCUs who are designated as Research 2 universities seek R1 status, but there are some who publicly acknowledge that that's their goal. What advice would you give to those institutions about their pursuit of the R1 status?
Great question. I would say, first of all, that it's a recognition and an acknowledgement that we have a number of HBCUs that are engaged in research and are conducting research at a high level to both in support of faculty scholars, but also in the training of graduate students. I think it's also an acknowledgement and a recognition that there are a broad and a vast variety of institutions that are doing a variety of different types of research, whether it's basic science, laboratory research, clinical research, research that is applied in nature. And so I think it's an acknowledgement that research can take various forms and shapes, and encouraging institutions to also invest in their research infrastructure. One of the things that we've learned at Howard, and I think it's true at every institution, having bright, talented faculty is certainly critical to the conduct of research, but you also have to have an infrastructure that really facilitates that research process, both from the consideration of what types of ideas that the institution is going to support and emphasize, to the development of research proposals, the building of research teams, and just as importantly, when that elusive grant is won, and an institution and a faculty researcher have been successful in attaining that grant, really being able to spend the funds. You have to remember that what the Carnegie classification monitors is not the amount of research you've been awarded, it's the amount of expenditure. So you have to be able to hire individuals to be engaged in the research process. You have to have a process to be able to facilitate the purchase of equipment, the purchase of supplies, the support for graduate and undergraduate students, partnering with other institutions in the case of multi-institutional grants. And all of that requires infrastructure to be able to be successful. And, one of the things that we have obviously come to understand as an institution is that if we don't have the appropriate infrastructure, it really can hinder the success of an institution to be engaged in really significant research. And so while we've reattained R1 status, continuing to strengthen our research infrastructure is going to continue to be a significant priority for the university, making sure that we have the appropriate staff in our research office, supporting research at the school and college and the departmental level, the support of graduate, professional, and undergraduate students. And those are things that the R2 HBCUs also have to do. in order for their faculty to be successful, not only in attaining grants and contracts, but being able to implement them and being able to spend those funds so that the research can be conducted, can add to the scholarship, and can significantly improve the institution's reputation for being able not only to attain grants and to spend grant funds, but obviously the goal ultimately is to contribute to the scholarship and to contribute to being able to resolve these intractable problems that we face as a society. And maybe that's another important point that we want to make, that um, while it certainly is important for us to have R1 status, we want to make sure that we're training our students to be able to solve these problems that have really become significant societal problems, whether it is related to the climate, whether it is related to artificial intelligence and the new and interesting new ways that questions are being approached, whether it is in relation to critical issues in terms of um, societal challenges that we face. The goal for us as an institution is to make sure that we're training the next generation to be able to answer those problems, and that we're supporting faculty researchers who are building upon that human capacity of our students and faculty and staff.
And I think that's so important. I agree with you because when you think about attaining the status of Research One or being a research university, often we think about HBCUs as really focused on solving problems, as you said. Certainly, Dr. Wuto, you spent many decades as a researcher, faculty member, dealing with real social issues and problems that we needed to have addressed in our community and beyond. And so, understanding how important it is for HBCUs and others who engage in research that looks at solving some of these critical problems. It is so, so important. So I'm really glad that you raised that because actually that was my next question. Okay. And so when you think about that, when we think about the impact of the research that is done at HBCUs, do you think that often we say that part of the issue with attaining the research status is that we're underfunded or we don't have the support necessary to engage appropriately in these initiatives. But will the R1 status or does the R2 status perhaps provide us with additional resources to support this research? Is that one reason why attaining such a designation is important to HBCUs?
Well, I think having the R1 designation does create opportunities that may not necessarily have been available, and similarly for an institution that is designated as an R2 institution, there are opportunities to partner with other institutions. There are, as I mentioned previously, there are federal government and also private foundations and other institutions that look to identify um, um, institutional partners that can help support the work that they do. And one of the ways to do that is, if the designation of R1 or R2 is suggestive that this is an institution that is capable of doing research and can be able to partner with us and has the human capacity to be able to help support, whether it's a federal government agency or a foundation or a nonprofit. It's one way to help try to identify um, institutions that may have the capacity to be able
Mhm.
to support the work that they are doing. And we also know that, to the extent that there are um, successful faculty researchers who want to be at an R1 institution, and students who are maybe savvy enough to understand that they may potentially have more opportunities to build and develop their research and build and develop themselves as graduate students who may look to be at an institution that is an R1 or R2 institution. So I think it does have a material impact, both in terms of what opportunities are available, um, also in terms of being able to recruit and retain top researchers and graduate students, and from the perspective of potential entities that may want to partner in any variety of ways, that the R1 or R2 designation may be a significant factor in terms of the institutions that they may want to seek out in terms of um, um, approaching and addressing critical issues that are of importance to them as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also, I'm wondering, I want to take a little shift and think about this in terms of mission. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, but oftentimes I hear people saying, well, is being a research uh, institution aligned with the mission, not only in the ways we talked about previously, but also in terms of students. What value to an undergraduate student specifically um, does being an R1 institution bring to them? Why would a undergraduate student um, elect to attend an R1 institution?
Mhm. Well, I would say and maybe I'll speak to Howard in particular, but I think this is true for other institutions as well. We believe that being engaged in critical research and being engaged in research that helps to address and solve the societal problems that we face
Mhm.
um, can also help improve the teaching. As a scholar, as I was involved in the research that I was doing, and as I um, was able to get funding to conduct my research and publish from that research, I also used those findings to inform the way that I taught my students.
Mhm.
And as I supported students in my research activities, the students both learned in the classroom. They also learned in terms of engaging in research, assisting and supporting in terms of publishing in various journals, presenting at national and international meetings. So having the opportunity and the ability to be engaged in research also helped those students in terms of thinking about what they wanted to do in their careers, thinking about how they wanted to be engaged as healthcare professionals or as clinician researchers. And I had several students go on to serve as faculty at R1 and R2 institutions. So I certainly believe that exposing them to the research that I was doing was critical in their consideration about what they wanted to do in their careers, and exposing them to different research opportunities also sparked that interest in research in them.
Mhm.
And so certainly I think being at an R1 or an R2 institution and having access to faculty who are scholars, who are researchers, can certainly impact the trajectory of students who may not have considered research as an option for themselves before they were given the opportunity and the exposure to that. So I certainly think that institutions that have a commitment to research
Mhm.
can significantly influence the trajectory of students who can then pursue their own research careers. And I guess maybe I'll read into your question a little bit as well, that
Okay.
there are close to 100 HBCUs
Mhm.
now, and while we all have a common broader mission,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think the institutional mission for many HBCUs can be very different.
Yes.
We know that there are some HBCUs that are primarily teaching institutions, and those are important institutions, and they have an important mission.
Mhm.
And there are also HBCUs like Howard and Morgan State, North Carolina A&T, Florida A&M, Prairie View, and others that really have research as a significant part of their mission. And I think we have to appreciate the broad range and diversity of HBCUs, the range in our individual missions. But I also believe that what is going to help us in terms of moving forward is to do what we do at an excellent level. And so if we're primarily a teaching institution, we have to teach and provide opportunities to students in an excellent way. If we're research institutions and HBCUs that are R1 or R2, we have to do that work at an excellent level. And that is how we're going to advance our individual institutional missions, and I believe that that's how we're really going to continue to set the HBCU experience apart. Certainly, we as a group provide nurturing experiences to our students. We also encourage them to be their authentic selves. And to the extent that, those of us that are R1 and R2 and research institutions, we have to do that at the highest level. That really helps to foster a culture of research, foster a culture of the teaching, research, and service. And for those of us that have a clinical mission and, also our clinical mission. But I think the key is to do it at an excellent level so that, as we make the case for HBCUs, we're making the case based upon the excellent experience that we provide to our students, whether it be in the arena of teaching, in the arena of research, in the arena of clinical care. That will be the first thing that we're indicating that we do this well.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that response. And I think it's so important to understand the breadth and depth in terms of the kinds of HBCUs, the diversity. We are eclectic in many ways, although certainly we share some common purpose, but certainly our missions are distinct, and every institution must certainly be true to its mission. And again, because of course, it is my work to look very closely at HBCUs throughout the ecosystem. That list of 40 institutions out of about 99 or 100, I mean, that's 40%, right? So that's a significant number. And it ranges, as you said, from an institution like Howard or FAMU or North Carolina A&T to Spelman College, for example, a fine liberal arts college, but still research university on the list. All the Black land grant institutions, the 1890 institutions are listed again, aligned with their missions or their sort of intent. And also I think about the impact of those institutions on all fields, but certainly STEM. If we look and consider, for example, Xavier is on the list, is a research university, as well as Morehouse School of Medicine, and the list goes on and on. So again, it really does speak to the diversity of the institutions and the ways in which they serve our community in all of its aspects and aspirations. Great. The other thing I'm wondering in terms of HBCU research universities, does this provide an opportunity for partnership? I know we certainly have many partnerships across the HBCU enterprise, but I'm just wondering, do you think that the expansion of the classification or designation gives more opportunities for partnerships among HBCUs?
Absolutely. And, I think it is also very important and critical for us to be able to partner and collaborate and think creatively about ways that we can do a number of things together. In some cases, it may be in the form of partnering to pursue large grants or contracts that we can more successfully implement as partners and collaborators. But I think it also takes the form of partnering with our sister institutions in terms of sharing ideas and thoughts about what things have been successful for us, what things may have been successful for them, and also the ways that we may be able to build an economy of scale. There's some circumstances where it may make sense for Howard to partner with 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 other institutions to really help us to get better pricing, as an example, or to help us pursue certain types of collaborative research opportunities, or for us to conduct conferences and meetings together for our mutual benefit. Many of the top research institutions across the country are parts of consortia and have meetings on a regular basis where they share best practices, and they have conversations about the future of particular disciplines. And I think that's something that we should do more of as HBCU sister institutions as well. Our faculty um, tend to have interests in research that may have common themes, and I certainly see ways for us to build upon that in terms of partnerships and collaborations for a wide range of areas.
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time for HBCUs. And I'm wondering, in terms of policy, federal policy, certainly our students concerned with how policy impacts HBCUs, or what kinds of policies we should be advocating for in order to support HBCU research universities. And I know certainly there's been some federal support of HBCUs in terms of um, grants awarded, and certainly our new contract is an example of how um, policy or federal support and other kinds of support helps us to helped us to achieve research one status, but also helps us to continue to explore issues of importance to HBCUs. So I'm wondering, in terms of advocating for um, uh, policy decisions, or that would impact HBCU's ability to do this work, what kinds of how do you think we could advocate um, for more support, or for more policies that are aligned with HBCUs and our um, capacity and commitment to solving issues that are important to all of us?
No, I think that's can be done and should be done in a
Hmm.
number of different ways for the HBCUs, for example, that are state institutions,
Hmm.
lobbying the state governments, which
Hmm.
I know takes place
Yes.
and perhaps can be um, done in a coordinated way
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
states
Hmm.
that have multiple
Hmm.
HBCUs.
Hmm.
But also on the federal level,
Hmm.
every HBCU is, perhaps with the exception of Howard, is in a congressional district with
Yes, that's true.
representation, and
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
certainly lobbying your congressman, your senator in your local jurisdiction, I think is an effective way of advocating, one, for additional resources, but also for programming that supports the work that we do. I
Hmm.
think, as institutions, we're in communities where we have a direct and an indirect impact, and HBCUs certainly provide a value
Hmm.
to the institute, to the communities where we are based, and so also um, working with the community to serve as advocates
Hmm.
for the work that we do, I also think is important. So
Hmm.
certainly from um, an advocacy perspective, and our students, depending on the institution, whether our students may be more locally based, or
Mm-hmm.
for HBCUs that are more national institutions, our students can be effective advocates for the work that we do as well.
Okay, great. We're going to move in a few minutes to questions from the audience. Um, but I wonder, in terms of closing our conversation, what excites you about having this having reattained this status? Is there anything on the horizon um, for Howard as we sort of settle into R1 status? What excites you about this designation? And not just being the only HBCU as a research HBCU Research One institution, but also what that portends for the university and really for all of us.
Yeah, I believe that the designation is an acknowledgement to our faculty who have been doing great work for decades and for generations in a broad range of fields. And I think that acknowledgement that the work that they do has been recognized, is seen,
Hmm.
and has contributed to the designation of R1, I think is important. And I think it also serves as a model for other HBCUs that the R1 designation is achievable. I don't think it should be an end unto itself. I
Hmm.
believe it is an acknowledgement and a recognition that we are doing great work, and that we're going to continue to do work to address the significant challenges and problems that we face societally, and that we're preparing our students to be able to address. But I also believe that it's an opportunity for us to continue to partner with the number of R2 HBCUs, and both support them in their desire to achieve R1 status, and consider ways that we can collaborate and partner together. When I think about some specific opportunities as well. We're well into the age of artificial intelligence, and thinking about how we can use AI both to help us improve in our operational areas,
Hmm.
but also thinking about what are the research opportunities that we need to consider and that we should be preparing students for. What are the programs that we may want to create? What are the things that may be opportunities for us to partner with other institutions, both using AI and contributing to the research in AI? One of the things that I hear frequently is we don't just want to be users of AI, that we want to be creators, and we want to support the creativity of our students and our faculty who
Hmm.
are engaged in research. And I think that creates a whole range of opportunities as we consider how AI can be impactful in basic science research, in clinical research, in applied research, in epidemiological
Hmm.
research, in policy
Hmm.
um, um, opportunities. And so I think that there's a whole range of things that we could use artificial intelligence, data science, and analytics,
Hmm. Hmm.
not just in STEM areas, but across
True.
the broad range of programs and disciplines that we support at our institutions. I think that's just one way that we can start thinking more creatively using
Hmm.
technology to help us build upon research and partner across the sector.
And that's so important. The AI example is a very, very compelling answer because um, example because certainly it permeates everything right now, and certainly we want to be a part of the um, uh, a part of the process in terms of using it and making sure that we're understanding its capacity and actually lending to research about how it can be um, utilized. So that's a great example. And certainly HBCUs have always been on the forefront of making sure that our communities are not left behind and we're not, trying to catch up. And so that's a great example. So some questions from the chat, I'll try to um, summarize, I guess. There's a question, how can universities assess and enhance their current strategies for preparing students for research opportunities, particularly in fields requiring strong quantitative skills? And, yeah.
That's a good question. I think one, and it raises the point that it is important to conduct a needs assessment and
Mm-hmm.
and also a status assessment where you are as an institution. We had to do that
Mm-hmm.
at Howard, and I think that needs to be a continual process.
Mm-hmm.
Identifying where are our strengths
Yes.
as an institution, where are some of the areas that we need to build upon if we're going to achieve and then maintain R1 status. Where are some of the areas that we are challenges and were
Sure.
challenges for us institution, and that requires introspection.
Yes.
And it required us to be honest
Mm-hmm.
about what things we our faculty were telling us were going well, and more so what things were challenges that we needed to continue to address to be supportive of the research culture. And so I would say similarly, institutions need to do a needs assessment
Mm-hmm.
and really an honest introspective assessment of what are the strengths in terms of research infrastructure, support for faculty, support for students, where are the areas that need to be strengthened, and what are the resources. Oftentimes it comes down to resources that
Mm-hmm.
there are decisions that have to be made about where investments uh, can be can be implemented, and as institutions across the sector, we don't have unlimited resources, so
Okay, yeah,
that
sure.
oftentimes requires the difficult decision of where we're going to make investments that will have the most impact,
Mm-hmm.
and that will be able to reap the return that is important for us as institutions and as a community.
And I'm wondering a question around leadership. Certainly, when we think about certainly being a provost at a research university, um, do you think there are different ways in which a provost might approach his or her work given that designation? Um, has that led you to make different decisions in order to reattain and certainly now um, maintain this status?
That's a great question. And maybe I'll one of the ways that I'll respond to that and think about it is as an institution that has research as a significant part of our mission. That also means that we both have to identify, recruit, and retain faculty who are engaged researchers. And so decisions, even from the point of faculty searches that are being conducted,
Mhm.
searches for chairs who are going to support and help develop junior faculty
Mhm.
researchers, as we're conducting decanal searches,
Mhm.
making sure that research is a priority
Sure.
for those individuals. And so the commitment to research is one that has to permeate every level of the institution. It has to be something that not only the president and the provost are committed to.
Mhm.
It has to be a commitment with our deans, with our chairs, and with our individual faculty. But that also means that we have to provide the resources to make that
Mhm.
research um, more readily um, able for faculty to engage in.
Sure. One of the sort of bylines now, the HBCU Center, particularly with our new strategic plan that we've just completed with the help of our strategic planning consultant, is HBCU Research Matters. and HBCU researchers matter. Because oftentimes it is the case that HBCU researchers may not have the platform, they may not have the kind of resources, be that time and other kinds of resources to support their own research agenda. And so um, how we as institutions, I guess, really think about supporting faculty, as you mentioned earlier, I think is critically important and embedded in your question about even selection of deans and all those ways in which um, making sure that research sort of permeates our decision making is critically important. Another question, Provost, is uh, attracting, training, and retaining students in STEM is becoming more difficult with skills-based IT pathways across the country. How do you engage the majority of undergraduates who are not in the lab or in STEM fields to build with the internal research community to support R1 achievement?
That's a great question. And, for Howard, and maybe I'll speak to Howard. We have 14 schools and colleges, including a comprehensive academic health campus. We have a number of professional programs, law, social work, education, um, and we also have a graduate school. And so we have students from a broad range of disciplines and who are interested in pursuing a range of areas. Certainly, we have a significant number of STEM students in our College of Engineering and Architecture and in our College of Arts and Sciences. But every student is not a STEM student, nor do they have to be. And so I think it's important for us to expose students to research of all kinds. And that may be basic laboratory research, it may be engineering and STEM research, but I think we also can expose students to the way research is conducted in the humanities and the social sciences, to the way research is conducted in the health professions framed around clinical practice and clinical care. And we have tried to do that. And so we're supportive of faculty. We have faculty who are conducting research in our College of Fine Arts. So we're supportive of their scholarship as well. And obviously depending on the mission of the institution, depending on the range of disciplines that are being offered, it may be easier in some areas. Than others. But we for as an example, we have a program we call the Karsh STEM Scholars Program, which really supports students to pursue PhDs in STEM fields. We several years ago created a companion program, the Humanities and Social Science Scholars Program, which would support students in the humanities and social sciences to pursue PhDs. What we didn't expect, but what has been really interesting, is as students from those two programs have engaged and taken courses together, what they're really interested in is the intersection between science and the humanities and social sciences, and thinking creatively about ways that STEM students and non-STEM students can partner to participate in research projects together. That I think has been really fascinating and an example that we can learn things from our students as well.
Absolutely.
And the interest that those students have shown in whether they're from STEM or they're from the humanities and social sciences is how they can work collectively at that intersection to solve these broader societal problems that we face. And so we've had to think creatively about how we support that interaction and engagement. It wasn't something that we initially thought about, but I think it's something that that they have identified that I think is going to be an important area for us to be supportive of.
Absolutely. And to solve these issues, it takes a cross-section of disciplines and perspectives and en- entree points. I mean, so that's really um, it really is a great example of the CARSTEM and then the companion program in the liberal arts and humanities out there. I think we have time for one more question, and we have some great questions actually. And this question is, Provost, with the political climate with DEI, what are some ways or strategies we might use to ensure our HBCU Howard culture as a research university is maintained and not lost?
Yeah, I would, I'll maybe the way I'll answer that. I was meeting a group this morning from Guadeloupe, from the University of Antilles, and
Mm,
sharing with them a little bit about the history of Howard. And while we are an HBCU and we're certainly proud of that designation, I shared with them that at the founding of Howard University, our earliest students included the children of many of the founders who were young white girls,
mhm,
as well as the descendants of slaves, because Howard was founded shortly after the Civil War. And so we have been an institution that has been providing educational opportunities to women at a time where that was rare and unusual.
mhm,
We had classrooms with young white girls and young Black boys in the classroom being educated together. Howard is um, provided opportunities for women at a time where that did not occur in higher education in this country. So I mention that to say that as an institution since our founding, we have provided opportunities for a broad range of races and cultures for women at a time where it was not popular. And so
mhm,
whether it is called DEI, whether it's called diversity, whether it's called doing the right thing, this is who we've been as an institution
mhm,
since our inception.
mhm,
And I would venture to say that Howard will always be an institution that provides opportunities to individuals, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, regardless of the other characteristics that have tended to become separators in our society. And so those are things that we're going to continue to do as an institution. We're going to continue to do research and to do work that is of importance to our community and of importance to the world. Because if we don't do it, we don't know where it will be done and how those questions will be answered. So that's something that we're committed to as an institution. And we would tend to be less tied to nomenclature.
mm,
What it is called can change over time. What is important is that the work has to continue to be done. And so maybe I'll answer it in that way.
And that's a appropriate answer, and it's so true. I mean, Howard's been doing this since 1867, and will continue, I believe, certainly through what's that, 2876. So okay, I can't quick adding, but certainly I always talk about HBCUs not only in the 21st but the 22nd century, and so certainly Howard is an indispensable asset to the nation and to the world, and certainly to our communities. And so, thank you so much for that, Provost. I know we are closing now so that our participants can go on to the next session. But again, I want to thank our Provost, Dr. Anthony Wuto, for his insight. This session, HBCU Research Universities, Capacity, Culture, and Institutional Capital, I think is extremely important topic and one that I was certainly excited to share with you as our opening session. So again, thank you, Provost. Thank you all for joining us. Please remember to complete the evaluation. And again, look forward to a great day today with this conference. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Great day.